Today I'm your host Ali. Today I've got a very special guest, Martin, also known as the British Punter. He's also got a YouTube channel just like us
Hello.
called the British Punter. We'll put the link in the description. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Share it with any friends who may be interested in American football. 1, 2, so we can help grow this UK American football community. Martin, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hello, nice to meet you. Oliver, how you
Yeah.
doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's a pleasure to be on. Just promoting British American football. We both play different positions, but it's
Very
good.
different positions, yeah.
So this is the question I always ask people when we start. How did you get into American football and the NFL?
Right, this is going to show my age. So, in around 2000, 2001, I was a goalkeeper, played the county level, quite a high level, thought football was going to be my path in life. And then one night, it must have been on Sky Sports or something, I caught a bit of a game and I had no idea what was going on. But it just looked really good fun. And I started to kind of not follow a team, but if it was on, I'd try and watch it and try and understand, what was going on. And then over time, I thought I really want to kind of get into it. I had no friends that were into it, so I brought Madden 2001 on
Okay,
the PlayStation 2.
I think
So I'm going back.
my first one was Madden 20. I think.
2001. It had just come out, and the PS2 was like pretty new at the time, and the graphics back then were amazing. And I learnt the game essentially through Madden. And the more that I kind of knew from Madden, knowing the game, and I thought, well, I better kind of follow someone. I didn't want to follow a Super Bowl winning team. The first Super Bowl I watched was the Ravens Giants, and it wasn't a
Oh,
particularly great Super Bowl, but the Ravens were a solid team.
yeah.
And then I was used to scroll through on Madden and you'd see the helmet and the right ratings. And I think the Cardinals were probably ranked the worst team. And I
That's
like their little stadium in the game, and I like their basic kind of jerseys and basic helmet. And I thought they probably need a bit of support, really. so so I just supported them from there, really, because they were terrible on Madden.
I love it. Like you're going for that underdog, like the
Go for the
proper.
underdog, yeah, yeah,
So
too right.
So like in our football, European football, I'm a Birmingham City fan, so like I understand like being an underdog and being crap and stuff.
Yeah,
So
too right.
so my,
Yeah,
so my uncle got me into American football, and he said, "I've picked the Vikings. We're finally going to be able to glory hunt a team because at the time we were good. It was 2017. We just got to NFC Championship, and
yeah.
then from there, from there it just went downhill. So yeah, I get you. I get it. I get it. Like I loved the logos, and that's how a lot of people pick their teams in Britain because we don't
It
have a
literally is.
tie to a location.
Pick a colour, pick a player from a team. If you've got no one to kind of guide you, I could have been a Packers fan or a Cowboys fan, but I thought everyone probably supports them. They're like the Man United, or well, now it's Man City, but
Yeah,
back then, kind of Man United and stuff. So yeah, I just kind of got into it really through that, and the more that I understood the game, the more I wanted to play the game. And I was just really taken back by the kicking element. And I think that's my football, my goalkeeper background. I
yeah,
found that more appealing, I suppose.
yeah.
Obviously, I like I respect every position and stuff, but I really just kind of went towards the special teams direction, so to speak. I did a bit of receiver in my late teens and stuff, but I wasn't anything particularly special at receiver. So yeah, that's how I become a Cardinals fan ultimately.
I think that's interesting because I feel like whenever we get rookies on a team, they always want to go offense, especially wide receiver or
Yeah,
quarterback because those are kind of like
The glory position.
the glory positions. And you and I, I play middle linebacker in youth, and you play punter. They're not really glory positions to say. So I think
Your position's more of a glory position than mine.
yeah, of course. But yeah. So like, were there like any players that inspired you, punters or not, when you started watching the NFL?
Yeah, there were punters and kickers. I would say very early on, I've kind of moulded my game on a punter called Jeff Eagles. He played, I think, for nearly 20 years.
Ooh.
He ended up at the Giants towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with a player like Jeff Eagles is he didn't have the strongest leg, not like the kind of rookies and the new generation of punters in the league now. Didn't have the strongest leg, but he was very accurate at pinning the offense back in the 5, in the 10, very consistent at that. So I very much, I mould my game on him. Shane Leckler was a massive influence on me. I do think he is the best punter of all time. He totally revolutionised the game as far as actually being considered the best, the very best in a position.
Yeah.
And then Darren Bennett also, he was the first Australian to really make an impact in the NFL. Like me, didn't go to college, didn't play the college system, come from Aussie rules, so come from another sport like myself. And again, for a good 10, 12 years, I think he was one of the best in the league. And he opened the doors to, I would say, pretty much every Australian punter that's in the NFL now. And I think my last count is about 6 or 7 starting punters. And it all really started from him in the late 90s.
Really, I didn't know there was that many Australian punters in the NFL now.
Yeah,
Because
there are.
that's brilliant. I
Yeah,
guess
there are.
they'd all be inspired by him, probably.
It's more a company called Pro Kick Australia, which I think he was affiliated with at the start, but they realised that Australians are naturally good at kicking the ball out of their hand because of Aussie rules. So they've set up a company where they send these young Australian lads, well, some older Australian lads, over to the college system, and they're just killing it, absolutely
that,
killing it.
that's class. Like, so having a different sport can sometimes help with the foundations for being in the NFL or just playing American football in general, like you said, with
Yeah, yeah,
goalkeeping and
definitely.
football.
Yeah.
So why punting specifically? What was it about that like just caught your eye? Was it the fact that it's a unique skill, isn't it?
It's very, very unique skill. And if I'm being totally honest, I think the British game is decades behind when it comes to special teams.
Yeah.
We have a nation of players who have got the ability to punt really well, to kick field goals really well, but it's so neglected. It really is an afterthought for, I would say, probably 70-80% of the teams in this country.
Yes.
And I'm trying to change that slightly if I can,
Yeah.
because I want, my actual goal at the end of it is to inspire the next generation coming through to think, do you know what, punting's actually quite cool. It does take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of precision to hit a 4.6 hang time, have it turn over in the air and come back down. That does take a lot of skill. It's not just a case of catching the ball and then just kicking the ball,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is ultimately the British game at the moment. And that really, that could change. That could change quite easily if coaches and players really wanted to push and go, do you know what? Instead of doing 20-yard punts, we can do 50-yard punts. And it's such an underrated position. It can change the pace of the game. Massively important, but massively overlooked in this country.
I think it's crazy that it's overlooked in Britain as well, especially because football is our number one sport, which is an
Yeah,
entire game based off kicking. So you'd
yeah,
think kicking and punting would probably be our stronger suits when playing American
exactly,
football.
exactly. But it is, and I can say this with strong conviction. It's by far the weakest element in the British game so far. So I'm hoping that, you know, showing that it can be done, that there can be British players that, adapt to that style and really show that if you've got a good punter on your team, you can totally change the pace and the direction of a game.
So one thing I wanted to ask is like, because when I was in youth, I'm in under 19s now. When I was in youth, we didn't do any kicking, any special team, any
Hmm.
of that. Right, it's not part of the game in Baffa for those younger ages. Do you think
Yeah.
if we did like get them to practice it at a younger age, maybe special teams would be better?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do. And also, I work with United Kicking at the moment, and we are developing a very strong group of lads between the ages of kind of 18 and 21 who are getting scholarships to go over to America,
that's brilliant.
to top colleges as well. Some lower level colleges, but some top colleges. And I hope that one day it will go from American dominated, Australian dominated, to the next big British dominated.
I think it can be as well.
It,
Like you
it
said,
can, yeah,
it just needs the right coaching. It needs the fundamentals, that doesn't it?
it certainly does. It certainly does. And I'm happy. I get DMs fairly often on Instagram. People that there are people out there that really do want to kind of learn how to do it properly, because it really can set you apart as well, especially if special teams, field goals, that kind of thing is what floats your boat. Punting's
Yeah.
another element which not many people can do, and not many people can do consistently.
It because there is this image, like you said earlier, that punting, kicking, that's easy. But if everyone could do it, they wouldn't be getting paid millions of dollars in the NFL because any old guy off the street
Exactly,
could do it. So there is a technique to it.
exactly, exactly.
It
And I'll tell you what has really changed in the 24 years that I've watched the NFL and American football is 24 years ago, a running back was seen as probably second to the quarterback or maybe the top receiver as the player on the team, as far
yeah,
as pay went, as far as status went. Kickers were just earning, and punters were earning the league minimum salary. And now,
really,
fast forward 24 years later, kickers are having the extension to their contract. You get Justin Tucker. I don't know the exact figure of his last contract, but multi million pound contracts, whilst running backs
yeah,
after their rookie contract expires, they're free agents, and then they just get the next rookie out of college, and they don't have that prestige that there was 24 years ago. Whilst kickers and punters are signing for longer, they know that a good kicker will be on the team potentially for 10 years.
yeah.
Maybe 15, but 10 years is very doable for the elite level. Running backs now, anything over kind of 4 or 5 years, they won't re-sign them. It's
With
changing again.
with running backs as well, like kind of when they get to, I want to say maybe 27, 28, that
Yeah,
drop off starts to come, and teams are realizing that more and more. So you're
yeah.
right, like this last free agency we've just had so many running backs on the move compared to any other position, really, because teams are seeing them as like expendable. You can
They
just
really
draft
are.
one. And
Yeah,
how many games do you see in the NFL now where the team loses by a kick or a bad punt or something that just gets the other team a good field position? It's really important.
it is really important. And if you look back, at the statistics of field goal percentages and punting averages, it's only increased every year. Normally in a season now, you'd expect to see 5 or 6 60-plus yard field goals. When I first started watching, that was unheard of. That was, you might hear of one attempt, during a season, but now it's almost an expectation that, have a go from 60. We think you can do it, whilst that was never even thought of. Punters now are kind of averaging, above 48, 49, 50-yard average punts over a season. And that was just totally unheard of when I started watching. If you had a 43-yard average, you were seen as elite. Whilst now in the NFL, 43 yards, you're in the bottom end of the tier ultimately.
You're getting cut.
Getting cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting cut. One bad game and you're getting cut.
That is it with kickers. It's so delicate. Can't remember who it was specific. I think it was the Rams kicker this season. I can't remember his name, but he had a bad game. I think he missed 2 field goals or something, and he got cut straight after that game. And
I think you mean Brett Mayer.
Brett Mayer. He was cut, wasn't he, from them?
He was with the Cowboys and he missed, I think, 4 extra points in a game, and then they cut him. They had enough of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it's so delicate with the kicking and the special teams. They really do see it as like important.
They do. Yeah, they do. But the Americans have grasped that, it used to be a very much an afterthought in their game only until really the 80s and 90s. And then they've started to realise, do you know what? If we've got a good punter, that can make a massive difference. If we've got a good kicker who's consistent, can kick the game winners, that's the difference between playoff elimination and getting in the playoffs. It's a change in attitude. And I hope that one day we will produce a competitive nation of kickers and punters, because they are out there right now, but they just need to be found.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the NFL in general is growing in England and the UK.
Massive. Yeah.
Like all the time now, I'm seeing people wearing like the hats, the merch and stuff when on the streets. Whereas even when I was younger, I didn't even know what the NFL was. So it is growing, and I think, like you said, with the goalkeeping, a lot of people who will want to start playing, they'll realize that, oh, maybe my strengths is in special teams, and hopefully it can like grow through that.
That could well be a pathway, and I think the NFL, the international player pathway, that they need to start identifying that. I mean, it's okay having rugby union players trying to be running backs.
Yeah.
With the right coaching, they're not going to be practice squad players for 2 years and then go back to rugby union. They could be career punters.
Yes.
It's there. They've got the makings to do it. It's a missed opportunity at the moment in 2024. It's a missed opportunity, but hopefully that might change.
I think, the international player path program, there's definitely room for expansion with that, because I feel like there's a lot of people who would be really talented, like from BAFA and stuff, from the leagues we play in maybe, and other sports, and it kind of gets focused on rugby and transferring that over. Yeah, and like you said, there's a focus on running backs and stuff when they could be converted into a full-time position on the special teams using their skills.
Yeah, it could well be. But time will tell, and I think all it takes a trailblazer. It will take one player to go through that system.
Yes.
And then others will see, actually, they've been successful. Yeah, they're not going to have a glory position of a linebacker or a lineman or, a star receiver. But actually, there's another pathway within the pathway, so to speak. And that could be special teams. So
yeah,
I hope it does change. I really do, because I think it's a massive missed opportunity at the moment. But we will see.
I mean, possibly like in the future, because you've talked about how much it's changed from when you first started watching to now. There could be stars, because look at Justin Tucker. Like, kickers weren't stars before, and now he's almost known by everyone who,
Yeah.
watches NFL. So maybe there will be punters who are recognised as stars like him. He's a kicker, but
Yeah. I
recognised.
think I think Pat McAfee's done quite a lot in that regard.
Yeah,
He's really the first celebrity punter,
and
you
what a
know.
celebrity as well. Like he's massive now.
I'm a massive fan of his because he's naturally a funny guy anyway, but he was a punter. That
Yeah,
was his job, but he was very. I think his character come through on the field, and
yeah.
people kind of are drawn to that. They like personalities now, you know. In
I
in
mean,
in the sports are becoming so corporate. It's good to see somebody who's still a character who doesn't take themselves too seriously. We like that.
yeah. I mean, I love that about Pat McAfee. Like he does so much now. He does the college game days, WWE commentary. He's got his own show, Pat
He's got his
McAfee Show,
podcast, yeah, yeah,
and that he's hilarious on all of them. And like you
yeah.
say, his
He's just
personality really
himself.
does come through. Yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
be just yourself,
himself.
So you got Pat, you got Justin Tucker, we've got British punter in Britain. So
I'm trying to represent. I'm growing my channel, trying to get, without sounding preachy, but I'm trying to get the special teams some respect in this country.
I tell you what. 22 minutes in, and you've got me more passionate about punting and special teams than I've ever thought about before.
It's working.
Now I'm like, we gotta get this going.
Speak to
But
Samwell.
yeah,
Come down and coach you.
yeah, Mate, it would be brilliant. So you just mentioned coaching there. How important is like the coaching to the special teams? Because like we said, people think you just grab the ball, kick it, but there are special teams coaches. How
Yeah,
important is their role?
yeah. There's so many intricacies that go into, and I've always said there's one element in a punt which, if that's not right, then you're not going to punt the ball very well, and that's the drop, letting the ball drop in that nice position where your foot can make contact with the sweet spot, and then that gets you the spiral. And the more you kind of kick from your hip, and the more hang time you'll get, and then the better your directional punting will get. But it all starts with that drop. If the drop's not there, it's not going to go very far.
It's very intricate, like from what you just say. You don't just grab the ball, boom, send it up. You're trying to pinpoint it. You're trying to make sure the ball's as far back as possible, so the offense that's coming on is going to be struggling to get down that field.
Yeah, but your main objective as a punter is to not give away a big return. That's
Yeah,
probably priority number one after not getting the punt blocked. I think that's especially in brick ball, that is priority number one, is just get the ball away ultimately.
yeah,
But to not give up a big return, and then to ultimately put it where you have got the best chance of a fair catch or an out of bounds punt. But you've got a split second, and you've got to hope the snap's good. It's not bouncing off the ground, or it's not over your head, or it's not, coming at you end over end. A nice snap that comes straight to your hands, and then you can just set up and then just go. Yeah, that takes time. It takes a lot of practice, and yeah, there's a lot to it. And
definitely.
we
I
haven't
mean,
even touched upon the actual position of your foot, and where the ball needs to make contact with your foot. There's a lot
go.
to it. How to make it go lower, and how to make it, deceive returners where they get under it, but it actually comes in front of them. There's so many different elements. It's not just getting the ball and then just kicking it away.
Of course, and another thing you mentioned there is the long snapper. Getting that snap off is really important. Do you have to, like, when you're practicing, build up that relationship with the long snapper, making
Oh,
sure you
definitely,
you guys
definitely.
understand each other?
Yeah, yeah, we do, especially with the balls. We've got a couple of guys that snap. I mean, we do work on it.
Yeah.
But then with the season just about to start, you know, we are a bit pushed for time. I would obviously, I want to work on it all day if I could, but we don't have the ability to keep doing that.
Yeah. I mean, because this from a selfish point of view, the Minnesota Vikings, our long snapper Andrew DePaulo, he's been a Pro Bowler multiple times, I think, in the last 2 years. But our punter Ryan Wright had a terrible season last year, so it, you know, you can have a good long snapper, but you yourself as the punter, you gotta,
Yeah,
like you said, all those techniques you're thinking about when you're trying to make sure that one, it doesn't get blocked, two, that you know, it gets to where you want it to be. Make sure they can't get a massive runoff. So the connection's
yeah,
important, but
and it's equally it's just as intricate on field goals. You know, if you were to watch a lot of British games, the ball barely gets off the ground before it's blocked, and you know, I think again, it's just it's still seen back in time like, oh, we'll worry about field goals later. You know,
yeah,
it really isn't seen as much of a priority really, but 3 points can still make quite a big difference.
of course.
We had a couple of games last year with the Bulls that were within a field goal. You know, it can make a massive difference over the course of a season.
Yeah, whether that's in British or even in the NFL, like you see
Yeah,
all the time where teams lose by a field goal or they win by a record-breaking, 60-yard, however many distance
game.
field goal.
Oh, yeah,
It's so important. It really is.
yeah, no, massively.
And I think, like you said, if teams took it more seriously in brickball, then they would probably dominate a bit more. Those teams that do take it into account.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, the players are out there. They are out there. Just a bit of fine tuning, a bit of coaching. I trained a lad a couple of weeks ago up in Sheffield,
yeah,
and he came along to one of our UK camps, and he'd never punted before. He'd come just to learn how to hold on field goals, and I had about half an hour with him 1-to-1, and by the end he was kicking 45-yard spirals. And he
45.
was like, I didn't even know I could do it. I just, you know, I came here to to learn how to hold on a field goal. So it is there. It's, you know, it's unlocked potential.
That's that's impressive, and like a lot of people don't know that they can do it,
No?
and that they have the ability, and you know they don't even try it. You know,
Yeah.
I myself have never tried punting. You know,
Well, I
could be
think
good.
we need to do a follow up video. I think in the West Mids area.
I think so. Definitely, I'd be up for that. Get us, get us doing a punting competition. You'll beat me, but
Yeah.
I'll see how my technique is. Hopefully, learn
Yeah.
from you. You can coach me.
I'll coach you half an hour, and I'll get you kicking spirals.
Wicked. That's the plan. So you know, anyone watching and want to see that, we're gonna get it done at
Yeah.
some point.
But comments below.
Yeah, can't let us know because yeah, I do want to learn it now. But when you were first learning it, when you first got into it, Britball, did you even know there were British American football teams when you started? Did you know that was a thing?
No. Again, I'm gonna really show my age now. One of the one of my big kind of inspirations growing up was Rob Hart, who played for the Scottish Claymores in the NFL Europe League. Again, I was new to this sport, and I think through playing Madden, when you kind of went through all the NFL teams, there were like six other teams at the end with weird names, and I was like, the Scottish Claymores, who are they? And I
Yeah,
looked, and then I found out that they're professional, and I used to buy First Down magazine. It was like a newspaper, and then that
yeah,
had mainly NFL stuff, but then it would have the Britball stuff at the back. So when I was 15, I gave up being a goalkeeper, and
Right.
I then started going into kicking. And what I used to do was I would VHS videotape it used to be the Channel 5 Sunday night game, because Sky Sports would only show one game on a Sunday night back then. No red zone. That was a pipe dream back then. So I'd
Could you
catch
imagine?
the channel one game at a time. That's all you got, right?
We're
So
getting
I would
lucky
watch
now. Don't take it for granted.
that's it. Red zone's like heaven now. But I would used to video the Channel 5 game with Mike Colson, and then come home from school, watch it the next day, and I'm going to sound like a real nerd now. I would semi-watch the game, but whenever there was a field goal or a punt, I used to sit really close to the TV, and I'd rewind and I'd watch, and I'd just try and get like how is he kicking that ball? How is he kicking that high from that far? And that was it. There's no YouTube back then. That was how ultimately I learned the basics of a plant foot and stuff. And for my junior time, I played for the London Olympians for a couple of seasons, and I was involved with the England junior team, and I played a game for them. We played Scotland. Scotland were backed back then by the Scottish Claymore, so they had actual kit that kind of matched. Whilst we
Yeah.
just rocked up in old London Monarchs shirts, I think it was. And I met Rob Hart, who I'd seen on Sky Sports, kicking field goals for the Claymores, and I kicked with him,
That's
and
brilliant.
that's when I started kicking barefooted, because I just thought, well, if it works for him, I've got nothing to kind of benchmark myself against. So I started kicking barefoot at 16.
That's brilliant.
Now I kick with a boot on, and I pump with a boot on, but occasionally the barefoot will make an appearance, and I will kick one barefooted.
Just a special barefoot for a special teams.
Yeah.
That would hurt, I think, like punting barefooted. Just from
Punting
the outside
barefooted.
look at it.
I've had comments about kicking field goals barefooted, and people think that's strange, and they do ask me, you don't pump barefooted, Martin, do you? And I might be a bit crazy, but I'm not that crazy to punt barefooted. So yeah.
Just get onto the field. Commentators, what's he doing? He's taking off his shoe. He's thrown it to the sideline. Ball snapped.
Yeah, I did one. I did upload a video on my channel a couple of weeks ago, called like the return of the barefoot kicker or something. And I tell you what, we're talking like February weather. I think it was February or the start of this month. And when I took the sock off and I was on the grass, it was actually pretty cold. So I only did a couple of takes for the video, and then that was it. Sock went back on.
The frostbite kicker.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, that is really good. So, you you got into it, you developed it. How long have you been playing now as a punter?
So I've dipped in and out. So really, my junior years, I played very solidly for 3 years, and then I kind of life happened, and
Yeah,
I'd become a father, and you know you, your mind and your energy's focused elsewhere. But I did play a season for Milton Keynes. That was, oh crikey, I think 15 years ago, 14 years ago. Made a brief kind of comeback. I've played, I hate saying soccer, but I've played soccer throughout my life. I've always played,
yeah,
but every year, and it's usually around this time of the year, I always get the itch to come back and play. And I was going to come back the COVID year,
yeah. Bad
but then
timing.
COVID happened, so I couldn't do it then. And then the following year, now that I know I'm more settled in the Mids area, I gave the Bulls, I gave them a shout, and it's now my second season with the Bulls, and no, it's really really good, really really enjoy it. I'm so glad I come back, and as I said to you before we started recording, my YouTube channel kind of started by accident, but it's something
Yes.
I'm passionate about, and I want to kind of really grow the British game as well. I'm massively into the European League of Football. It almost harks back to the old NFL Europe days with the Claymores. A lot of the teams have got the same names and stuff. So there's a bit of nostalgia for me there.
Yes.
But that was always my goal, kind of up until the age of 2021. I really wanted to play in NFL Europe. I knew I was never going to be an NFL kicker or an NFL punter, but just to be a professional in Europe, in front of 10, 12,000 fans, that to me was like, that was it. That was my dream, kind of growing up. And that's still my dream now, even at 37. I'm still pushing to at least try and get a season under my belt professionally in Europe as a punter, and hopefully be a bit of a trailblazer for the punting position in Europe, and get get British lads, European lads, get them over to American full scholarships, which I couldn't get back then because it was impossible. Now
Yeah.
the world's a lot smaller in that regard, and you know, it's not as difficult now to get over there than it was 20 years ago when I was 17 trying to do it. It's very difficult.
It's it's brilliant, and you can do it. I think you'll be able to play in Europe, and the more we grow your channel, we grow this channel, we'll be able to promote punting more, special teams, get that going, because
Kicking, field goal kicking as well, because to me, although I class myself as a punter, I do think that field goals, kickoffs especially, that all elements of the special teams needs promotion, needs, bringing up to 2024, or at least 2000 standards, because we're back in 1950s at the moment, especially here, you know
definitely.
and I think it's such a waste, really. It's such a waste. The Australians, they picked up on it 20 years ago. They realized we're onto something here. We've naturally got a group of lads who could easily go over and conquer America, and they are. They are. I think one in four punters in the NFL now are Australian. So it's crazy. That could be
I,
us. That could be Britain in the next generation.
I think it is crazy, because, like we said, we've already said this, but football, number one sport, kicking. If there's anything we should be good at in American football,
Kicking the
it's
ball.
kicking.
Yeah,
Kick the damn ball, like.
yeah.
And but I've
Especially
seen,
with penalties, we're good at kicking balls over crossbars.
yeah, the
But that's
amount of
hard
times
for
I've done it.
Harry Kane.
Yeah,
World Cup.
I was just about to say Harry Kane. He's a big fan of NFL. Obviously, big star for English national team and Bayern Munich. He said he wants to try his hand in the NFL at kicking potentially. Maybe he could be a trailblazer as well. If he gets involved, more people might look at that. Even if he
Yeah,
just collaborates.
I think there, there's very much an idealized view, I think, of just becoming a kicker,
Yeah,
and I think the benchmark, especially in the last, I would say 10 years, is to kick, especially at the NFL level. It really does take some doing. Now the expectations are a lot higher.
yeah,
You know, back in the day, if you kicked a 52-yard field goal, that was seen as like the human limit back then. If it was a 60, well, you were number one in the world.
yeah,
They're doing that virtually every week now, and I think for someone to just think, oh, I could do that,
yeah.
it it's not as easy as it looks. Put
No,
it that way. It's not as easy as it looks.
no, it's
Yeah,
not.
coming from a professional sport is going to help, but it's not automatically going to make you an NFL kicker.
No, of course not. You know, football and NFL are very different.
Mm.
This is a personal gripe of mine with people who don't watch American football, which is bad. But do you ever get this? Oh, it's just rugby, isn't it? Because I get that all the time with
Yeah,
American football.
yeah.
And it's so different, the sports are. I think it's just the ball is a similar shape and there's hitting involved, tackling. But
I think in its most basic form, I think that's the only association the
yeah,
the general population will make is, well, they tackle each other. So it's like rugby. I used to get especially when I was 16, 17 at school and at college, where no one played American football. So I was a bit of a freak. People were like, oh, why do you wear the big shoulder pads? And
yes.
is it because American football's like a soft sport? And I'm like, you seriously, you want to try it? Because, yeah, these pads mean you can hit someone a lot harder.
Yes.
People don't understand that.
No, I mean, I I had a friendly last Sunday. Bruises, cuts, that's on the arms and everything. That's fine. But if we didn't have shoulder pads, helmet, some of the hits we take and give, it would be damaging to to your health.
It
You
would.
have to have the pads on.
You do. There's a method behind it. Another criticism you hear, oh, it's stop start, it's stop start, and I try and educate people and say, okay, it has to be stop start, otherwise it would just be a mess. it would
Offense,
just be,
defense.
it would just be a mishmash of people on the floor and
Yes.
the ball somewhere amongst it. So I say, well, it has to be like that, otherwise you'd have no objective. It'd just be random.
It wouldn't be a game. It would just be a tragic event of people on the floor.
It would. A mishmash of helmets and also it would just be a mess. Yeah, totally. But I can honestly say, in the last few years, I have got people interested into American football, and one of my best mates back home, he saw on my Facebook wall I went to the first 4 international series games at Wembley, and he's like, oh, looks like you're having a really good time, and introduced him to Madden,
Yeah.
and he then went. I stopped going to the international series games mainly because the Cardinals were never going to come back, but he then went for the next 3 years and really got into the sport and converted him, and he had all those old-fashioned views of they're pussies because they wear shoulder pads. It's stop start. Why is it called American football when they don't use their feet? That's another one that I get. I'm sure you get.
Especially as a special teams, that must annoy you because feet is like the biggest part of that.
Well, I get well. You know, I actually do use my. I'm one of the few that does use my feet in American football.
That shocks them.
It does. There is actually a very small kicking element. There's a football element in there somewhere.
And it's integral to the game. So it's American
It is
football.
integral.
We're sticking with that. We're not calling it hand egg or whatever people try to take the mick.
Well, they really pushed gridiron, didn't they? A few years ago, they wanted to
Gridiron.
kind of avoid American football and call it gridiron, but
It
it's
just doesn't
American.
ring the same. It doesn't ring the same.
It's not the same. They tried, but no, they can't change it.
It's too established now. That's really
Yeah.
good about you, mate. Because I've been a lot of my mates as well. They see me playing. I went to the Jags Broncos game a couple of years ago in London.
Okay.
And I obviously posting the game photos, and they're like, "Looks like you're having fun." And like you said with your mate, and I went, "Yeah, just give it a watch, give it a try." And then people will watch a Super Bowl, and then they think, "Oh, that's quite exciting." And then they're like, "But how do I pick a team?" I went, "Have a look at the logos. Have a look at maybe the place you'd want to go if you do go to America.
Yeah.
the colours, whatever, and pick a team. And then I know a lot of people who've started picking teams. Some, unfortunately, the Chiefs because of their successes, but
Oh,
I know.
your glory supporters. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got
You
you.
do get, or maybe they should do what I did and pick the worst team on Madden.
Yes,
That
yeah.
could be an option.
The thing about NFL, more than I think personally, more than any other sport in the world, is a team can be absolute crap, rubbish, but in a
Yeah.
couple of years they will be good. It's a cycle.
Yeah.
Like the Chiefs 10 years ago, rubbish. The Patriots 10 years ago, best team in the
Yeah.
NFL. It's switched now. Panthers 2017, Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, brilliant. Now they just finished. They finished with what 2, 3 wins or something. They
Yeah.
were awful. So if you are picking a team and they're crap to start off with, good times will come eventually.
Give it
Maybe not
10
Super
10
Bowl.
to 15 years and they might get in the they might get the playoff.
Maybe not Super Bowls as a Vikings and a Cardinals fan, but they'll get better. They'll win
Nearly.
games.
Oh wait, we were that close. I had a Super Bowl party that year.
Oh,
I had about eight people round because it was it was my lot are in the Super Bowl. Like I'm making the most of this.
yeah.
I mean, the story was it would have been a Disney film, I think, if the Cardinals had won it. But like we always said, we blew it at the end. But what a game, though! I think
Yeah.
I watched on YouTube not long ago the NFL Network, and I think it was rated something like the number 4 best ever Super Bowl as far as like from from someone who doesn't support either team.
That's
It
brilliant.
it was just entertaining, really entertaining. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was a little bit salty that we lost, but I got over it.
I don't blame you. I would be as well. We haven't got that close, but like
Nearly did it with
recently,
Favre though. A few years ago, I was rooting for Favre when he very
crossbody,
close.
crossbody inception thrown down the middle. I mean, the 70s, which is way before my time, showing my age this time. We got to 4 Super Bowls and lost all of them. So it does happen, but teams go in cycles, and it is interesting.
Yeah,
So on that point, you mentioned like the old NFL European leagues. Do you think we could see an actual European teams or global teams integrated into the NFL eventually? Because we got London games now becoming more popular. They're going to
yeah.
Rio de Janeiro, and then they've got Madrid in 2025.
Madrid, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've got very mixed views on it.
Okay.
I think that as kind of been proven over time, we British will love to see the best of the best come to if it's the Chiefs, if it's the Super Bowl winners, the Packers, whoever, we like to see the best. Supporting a team for a whole season, they did it with the Monarchs in the 90s. Started off, I get it wasn't the NFL, but it was the World League, which was essentially the NFL Europe.
Yeah.
So the Monarchs, they had cracking attendance at the old Wembley, and then that very quickly dropped off. Over 5 years, they went from getting 60,000 to like 5,000.
Crikey.
I I think the NFL should stay in America.
Okay.
I I fully like these international games because it was the kind of transition of when I first started getting into it. They used to do, I suppose, the international series games, but they were pre-season friendlies,
Yeah.
and they'd have 2 or 3 every year. They'd play Australia, Sweden, Canada. They'd play a game there and stuff, and people were always interested. They'd always sell the tickets and stuff. But
Hmm.
when it comes to then having its own team in the NFL, what I would prefer to see personally is I would prefer to see England have a European League of Football professional team and the country and the nation, as well as supporting whoever NFL team you support, gets behind a professional ELF team like the
Yes.
Germans do.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
we are so behind the Germans. They have a professional league. They have multiple professional teams in the European League of Football. I went to Stuttgart in November and I trialed for the team, and I follow their social media. I follow their updates as well as all the other teams, and they're getting like 10,000, 12,000 season ticket holders, for their season. And
That's brilliant.
last year, the Hamburg team got 32,000 for a regular season game.
30. That's more than some
Th-
football matches here.
32,000. Yeah. And I would prefer to see the talk of an NFL England, an NFL European division. I don't think it needs to be messed with. I think people are quite happy to have the best of the best come over, play at Tottenham, play at Wembley, play Germany, Spain, wherever. They're happy to have that. But I think as far as having a team to get behind, I would prefer it if London or whoever, wherever they would decide to have a British team, really push and let's push a professional British team first in a lower level, and let's give British players like myself and the next generation something to really aim for, and
Yes.
let's become stars in Europe first. Let's have a good solid fan base that gets behind a team, because history has shown that we don't.
Yes.
We don't.
No. And it does need to be improved.
It it
I
it does.
I have a similar point of view to you, because I guess it might be from the fact that we both play the sport, so there's that element of want something to a level in Europe that we can attain first, and
Yeah,
then hopefully grow from there. But another issue is as well, anyone who's into American football already, they've got a team. I'm Vikings, you're
yeah,
Cardinals. We're not going to
yeah,
switch. If London made a team, I'm not switching to them. I'm a Vikings fan now. So you'd have to get a whole host of new people, which would be great, but you got to get a bunch of new people into the sport, and then they pick an English team as their
yeah,
team. And I think that, or German if you're doing a European League or whatever. So it would be, you got to do that as well. But
yeah.
yeah,
I think it's more realistic to keep the international series games. I'm not saying for a minute to get rid of them, because I think they do promote that sport and it really has made a difference from
yes,
American football being a fringe sport that you barely saw on telly to now it's in popular culture, you know.
yeah,
Um, but I want us to really go back to basics. And if one of the London teams, say, put an application to become an ELF team in the next year or two, then I hope that a lot of these NFL fans for the international series who have got into the game that way, actually, when the NFL season's finished, like now, and it's the off season, let's get behind a professional team that plays in a league that is getting better and better every year, with no NFL backing like it used to have in the 90s and early 2000s. This
yeah,
league is growing. There are some very good English players who are, making a name for themselves over there at the moment. And
yes,
again, that's another pathway which, with the right coaching and the right steerage, could be a very viable option for a lot of young British lads, and just people in general as well. And you know, in a nice weekend in May, June, wouldn't it be nice to go and watch essentially the best English players play the best Germany, the best
it'd be
Madrid have just
brilliant.
got. So Madrid and Barcelona are going to have a professional game, this season. Awesome.
It's brilliant. It's only growing. And it's good to be part
we're
of
missing
it.
though, because we're not involved in it. We're not involved. We're out the game.
So if we can promote it more, which is what we're trying here, a punts at British Punter. The names work really well together.
Punter, or not? Utter punter.
Utter Punter. There you go. Like you said, I'd love that. I'd love it if we could just, go to a stadium, wherever, London, Birmingham, whatever, Manchester, and watch a game of American football with the best British team, best German team, Spanish, whatever. It would be brilliant because, we don't get that luxury here. We get it in October, November, once a year, a couple times a year at that month, and then we don't see it for 11 other months.
Yeah.
In live, apart from, we've got Britball, but we've got to grow it to a professional standard. I agree. It would be brilliant if we can. So
you would still be a Vikings fan. I would still be a Cardinals fan, but you have a British team in a European league playing the best of Europe.
Yeah.
I just think that has got to really be on the agenda, and then that will push the coaching to get better, and it will have a knock-on. It'll have a knock-on effect on all the tiers. It really will.
So, a couple questions I want to ask you before we round off. So, do you have a favourite punt or kick you've ever done?
I do.
Okay, go on.
I do. It's against your team.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Sandwell Steelers.
It's the 1 yarder. The 1 yarder against Sandwell Steelers last year.
That's you know what? This is really weird. Because I was on the under-19s. I was on the chains for that game.
Oh, was you?
So we were in the same place. We didn't even know each other. And I was on the Bulls sideline doing the chains. The amount of shit I was getting, like nothing bad, but just like banter, like because they're like, "Oh, look at you a lot." And I think I remember that punt actually.
Yeah. That was. I'm so glad that got captured as well on two different angles, which I've managed to kind of splice together for the video. But yeah, that was definitely a highlight because I think that really meant a lot to me personally. Last year, and I won't go into too much details, but last year I had a pretty shite year, really, if I'm being honest. And the one thing that really brought me back to myself was putting the helmet shoulder pads on and going up to Kings Norton Rugby Club on my own for 2 hours, and just kicking a ball. That to me is my kind of my sanctuary, and I like to push myself and stuff. So to have a punt like that happen in a game, the game ultimately didn't really mean a lot. Unfortunately, you guys were kind of, I don't want to be disrespectful, but it was a rebuilding year for you guys. But
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
That was that would be my answer to that one.
You know what? Even though I was fuming at the time and all that, because I had to be on the chains and watch it and stuff, I'm glad that happened for you. Now I know you, and it is really good, and I'm glad you had that moment. So, one last thing, then I suppose, any advice to anyone who's looking to get into punting, special teams, kicking? What would you say is the first thing they should do?
I would say contact myself, either via Instagram or YouTube, or the guys at United Kicking. I think going back to when I was younger, I tried to do everything off my own back, because there was no coaches. There was, like I said earlier, there was no YouTube. I had to kind of learn by hours of mistakes and not even kicking the ball off the ground and stuff. I think now, if it's something that you're really, really keen about giving a go, to be shown the right way to do it from the off,
Yeah.
it's far better than trying to do it at your local rugby club, not really knowing what part of the foot you need to make contact with the ball with, and you're more likely to injure yourself. And it's one of those things, it's human nature. If you try and do a skill or a sport and you don't take to it instantly, you're more likely to kind of give up on it.
Yeah.
Whilst there are us that, that can show the basics to do something and to do it properly. And it's a buzz. It's, the first few times you do hit a really sweet punt and it actually turns over and it actually goes quite far and high.
Yeah.
You're buzzing because you're like, you don't normally see that, especially in Britain. You don't normally see it, but it's not rocket science, but there is a science. There's a science behind it. Otherwise, it would be very easy, and it's not.
One thing I've picked up from you is that you've kind of learnt your craft. You watched the games when you were younger. You're specifically looking at the punters and the kickers and how they're doing their technique. You practice for multiple hours. You watch other people. You practice your own film yourself. Look back at it. It is really about just developing that craftsmanship. So what we'll do, we'll get your details, socials, YouTube channel. We'll put in description, and then anyone who wants to contact you about punting,
Sure.
whatever.
No, I really appreciate it, and I think it's definitely an idea for a video for me and you as well, and anyone else from a punts who, if you guys all want to do like a punt challenge or a kick-in challenge, I think that'd be a good laugh.
It'd be brilliant, and I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I think I'll be the best punter at punting. No, I don't know.
In left field though, there couldn't be any private lessons,
Are you sure? Yeah, just remember who hosted this one, Well, thank you for watching, everyone. Really enjoyed this video. Thank you, Martin, for coming on.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's been absolutely brilliant. Please like, share with anyone it might be interested in American football, or you think could be in the future as we grow this UK, British, American football community. Thank you for watching, and have a great evening, afternoon, morning, whatever you're watching.